Alright guys, welcome to another math tutorial video. The subject of today's video is going to be the quadratic formula. Now the quadratic formula is something most people remember as being this crazy big equation with a lot of variables that they couldn't quite remember. Now in reality, it's not that bad. If you can write it down a couple of times and just say it to yourself a couple of times, then it gets a lot easier. Now, the quadratic formula, what we use it for is factoring. A lot of times we'll have polynomials or quadratic equations. I don't know, let's write one up here. Let's say 2x squared plus 8x plus 4. Something like that, right? Something like this that we want to factor. Now, it's not always factorable, unfortunately, using our basic methods, whether it be basic factoring or the box method, something like that. It's not always going to work as much as I wish it would. So in those cases, we would have to use this quadratic formula to essentially find our roots of the equation. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this equation and plug it into here. Now the quadratic formula, to go ahead and read this out, is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now there's a whole long reason why this equation looks like this, but to save you all the time of that, I'm just gonna show you how it works. The one thing that a lot of people get thrown off by is this plus or minus. That essentially means that the following could be positive or negative. And generally it means at the end of our equation we're going to split it up into two different halves. Now the reason we say it could be positive or negative is because we have this square root right here. Now if you think about it, let's say we have the square root of 16. All of us know the square root of 16 is 4, right? But that's not the only way that we can multiply something by itself to get 16. What about negative 4 times negative 4, right? That still gives us positive 16. So theoretically, all square roots have a positive and a negative answer. Now that's not generally a way that a lot of us think about that, but it is true. Now, one other thing, the place we get these A's, B's, and C's. I'm sure most of you already know, but in case anyone's new to this whole idea of factoring here, we generally write these quadratic equations or polynomials in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. Now, that would mean the a would correspond to the 2, the b would correspond to 8, and c would correspond to 4. So let's go ahead and work this problem out. I'm going to write it up here in this corner. Here we go. So we had 2, 8, and 4. So we're going to have negative 8 plus or minus. Let me move the camera a little closer here. There we go. Negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 8 squared minus 4 times a was 2, and times c, and c was 4, all over 2 times a, or 2 times 2, right? Alright, so let's simplify what we can. Now underneath this square root, let's simplify this stuff here. 8 squared is going to be 64. And let's see, 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 4 is going to be 32. So we're going to have 64 minus 32 under there. And once we take 64 minus 32, of course, we're just going to get 32, right? So we could rewrite this as negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 32 over, and instead of writing 2 times 2, we can, of course, just write 4 there, right? Now, at this point in time, what we need to do is simplify this square root. So to simplify this square root, we'll kind of break down the square root of 32 here into a couple of parts. We'll break it down into its factors. 16 and 2, 16 into 4 and 4, and then each of those, of course, is just going to be 2 and 2. Now we have 2 pairs of 2's here, so whenever we're rewriting this, On the outside, we'll put one number for each pair, so we'll have 1, 2, and a second 2. Now those multiply with each other, so we'll get 4, right? Underneath, we'll go the number that's all by itself, 2. So 4 to the square root of 2 is our simplified square root there. Now we're going to take that and literally just put it in the place directly for that square root up there. So we're going to have -8 plus or minus 4 times the square root of 2 over 4. Now, this is nearing the last step of the equation, but the one thing left we need to do is we can simplify. Now, we can always look at these coefficients, these whole numbers, and simplify them with the denominator. The key is, though, we have to simplify both of them with the denominator. We can't just take -8 over 4 and then leave this 4 square root of 2 back there. Now, we don't ever change what is in that square root. That square root of 2 is always going to be the same, but we can simplify the 4 outside of it. So, luckily, these are both going to simplify in a similar manner, right? -8 over 4 is -2. So we can write -2 plus or minus, and then 4 over 4 is just 1. So technically we could write 1 here, but there's no need since that square root of 2 is going to be there, right? So we get -8 plus or minus, -2 plus or minus the square root of 2 as our final answer. You could break that up into -2 plus the square root of 2 and -2 minus the square root of 2, but in my opinion, this accomplishes that in just as well of a manner. So this would be our final answer. I'm likely going to make another video of this with an additional problem where we involve some imaginary numbers. I know, a little bit of teasing of what's to come here. But I may do a future video of imaginary numbers, and then I also might do a video of a quadratic formula where we get whole numbers at the end, where this square root simplifies perfectly. But for now, I just wanted to get a quick video up of how to solve the quadratic formula and exactly what to do. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to leave them below in the comments section, or go to my blog, mrmathclass.blogspot.com, and let me know there. Thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you guys next time.